Hi guys, happy Friday. Welcome to Friday Night Paint Therapy with Michelle. You're on the DIY page. I hope I am too. I'm looking for myself here. Say hello and tell me where you're from. I see Jane. I have a new stand for my camera, a ring light, so if I'm looking 30 tonight, that's why. Hope it's all working. I don't think I look 30, but this thing is bright. All right, there I am. So we're gonna paint some white tonight. White is a color. White doesn't have to be boring. Hi Susan, thanks for joining. I paint everything with texture and depth, and you can do that with white. So I'm going to show you how, although we're not going to get that far into it tonight, but we're going to talk about prep, tannins, bleed through, any questions that you've ever had about painting white, because I think it's a lot harder to paint than colors. I love color. As a matter of fact, everything in my shop right now is some shade of blue or green. And so I'm painting white right now, frankly, out of necessity, because I need to bring a little balance in there. So I knew that my next piece was going to have to be white. So I've got a 1930s, 1940s style bureau, and I've already done a little bit of prep work on it ahead of time, so you wouldn't have to watch every little step. But please ask questions. Hope you guys can hear me okay. Say where you're watching from when you come on, please. I can see these little weird rings on my, so I might need to tell me if the lighting looks really weird. Okay, so you can see the dresser behind me, and I'll zoom in a little bit more afterwards on that. But I'm going to tell you what I did already and why I did it. Then we're going to paint some white right over the wood. Then we're going to do a second coat so you can see what the second coat looks like. Alrighty, so when I first got this, I have to say, prep work took about 2 hours. I spent about 45 minutes pulling contact paper out of the drawers. Yeah, that's super fun. Hi Donna, hi Suzanne, hi Donna, a couple of Donnas. So I cleaned it down with crud cutter first to get all of the webs and everything off. There were a couple of shell appliques that I popped off. They were on with a nail. I just thought that dated the piece, so I took it off. And then what I did is I sanded the top because it had tons of gouges in it. You don't need, I just sanded it because I wanted it to be smooth. You don't need to sand to make the paint stick. DIY paint is going to stick. That wasn't the issue with the prep work. The extra prep I did is because I'm painting white. Any of you who paint white, then you know it's a lot of extra work, but it can be worth it. It's going to be beautiful when it's done. Hey Lynette, Cassie, and Mara, how are you? Did you guys see, I have to go back and watch, Mara and Jane did a live at 3 o'clock today here on the page. And you guys look like you were having fun, but I didn't have time to watch the whole thing. I don't know if you're in Georgia or in California, but you guys are having a blast, huh? All right, so what I did here is, you can see I sanded just where the knobs were, because these had some kind of fancy knobs and the lacquer on it is old, and I figure if I'm going to change the knobs, I want to make sure that piece is smooth, otherwise it's going to be bumpy where I took the hardware off. And so I'm not sure, I changed my mind a lot, so just in case I don't use the old hardware, I sanded that down and I sanded the top. And then what I did is cleaned it with crud cutter, gave it a good scrub and a good rinse. It had lots of sawdust on it, dirt from sitting wherever it was sitting. And then I used shellac. 2 coats, rolled it on, and I did it over the whole thing. So the reason I did it over the whole thing is because of bleed through. So I don't know if any of you guys have ever experienced this before. But if you paint white or light colors and you do it over a dark wood, not even a dark wood, well, mahogany, I think this is a mahogany veneer. I've had knots come out in pine and bleeding in pine. Any dark wood, after you paint it white, and if you see, or a light gray or a yellow or a light pink, a light color, if you paint right over that, and then you see pink or sometimes it looks a little like a salmon-y color, and I actually have some to show you because I got a little bleed through on this where I've already painted. I'm going to show it to you and explain why, if you want to know. I'm so excited about white and bleed through. I gotta stop it. Anyways, I interrupted myself. I'm sorry. Yeah, so this is not to help the paint stick. This is to block the tannins in the wood. So this is to make it so that you don't get the pink and the salmon color and the light color coming through. And the other thing that it will block is if you have, sometimes if you paint something and you haven't done a stain blocker or a primer, you might see little dark spots coming up. And oftentimes that is from old polish, something in the old veneer, a waxy finish, and the paint is resisting that and stains are coming through. So when I paint a light color, because I sell my pieces, and because 6 years ago I did something for my sister in white, and 9 months later it was bleeding and had knots, I always use this now. Okay, that was a mouthful. If you have questions about it, and I know just from experience, I've tried tons of things and this is just what I go back to. Other people might have their tips and tricks, but I used to do a lot of interior design and woodwork too, and I would use this or a white bin primer, which is an oil shellac based also, not oil shellac, and I would do that over oak before I painted it white. Hey Carol. Alrighty, so where have I ended up? So I've got one coat of white. I'm going to show you where I've bled through a little bit. Tonight we're going to paint with White Swan, which is the truest DIY paint white. And I love using this. I'm planning on doing pure white, but I could end up doing a little bit of a different color around the edges and then blend in, but we're going to do white right now. All right, let me move my seat. So the bleed through, the problem that I have is on the side. So I'll show you that when we turn it around. Please ask questions if you have any about painting white or, and then I'm going to move you over here. And I think you can see me, except my left and right is a little messed up there. All right, so I'm using my Klingon brush, my S50. I keep forgetting I can't see that far away anymore. So the whole piece, Wendy, I haven't stained the drawers. The whole piece has got shellac over it. I know you can't see my head, but the whole piece has shellac over it. So they actually do look finished because they're kind of shiny. But you can see these spots where I sanded down away around where the hardware was, and this was a shell applique. I also always paint with my drawers out, but for this purpose, I have the drawers in. That's why I've already painted the frame. So my first coat, I always just do kind of sparse. I will end up painting this with some texture. I'm not going for a nice clean sprayed look. This is going to be a textured piece, and there's going to be lots of shading when it's done. It's just going to be white. Hopefully it'll balance things out. So just one, and you'll notice when I turn this around that you can see through my coats because they're pretty thin. Just the first coat. And usually I've painted the white before and stamped it. I've only had to paint 2 coats of it. My second coat will go on a little thicker. Probably on the top I will do 3 coats because I'm going to want to sand that. I probably won't sand the rest of this. Another good reason to use shellac, I just don't know how to get me and another good reason to use the shellac, I'll try to move you closer here with my new stand as I get used to it, is that That totally didn't help, did it? That made it worse. If I want to, I'm sorry guys, I'm trying to get used to new. I did play with this a little today, but things never stay put. I'll do a little bit of wet distressing after with a wet cloth because I've got these raised bits. And when I do that, the wood is going to show through. So that's another good reason to use the clear shellac instead of something that is colored. Because you can't even tell it's there. Very thin coat. Hey Brianna. Hi Sue, welcome. I'm glad you found us. Usually we're all about the color here, but I'm changing it up and I'm doing white tonight. I think I painted 2 white pieces last year, maybe 3. I do benches and stuff in white, but furniture, I love color, but right now, like I said, in my shop, you can totally tell. It looks like a crayon box, lost it in there. Screwdrivers. What did I do with my screwdrivers? Oh, they're right next to me, all handy. So I'm just going to pull this drawer out here so we can paint that. What else can I tell you? So the other, a couple other things that I've learned about using this shellac underneath the paint. If you paint the shellac on kind of thick and then you go back and you put your paint on also a little bit thick, and also before it dries, before the shellac dries, you will get a crackle effect. So if you've ever, painted with DIY paint or other paints too, and you've gotten a crackle and you're not sure why, it could be because if you use it over shellac, temperature is a big part of that. You can also force it by using a heat gun. So if I want to get crackle, I'll paint my paint on nice and thick and put a heat gun to it, and I get a nice crackle or crazing. And then the thicker it is, the thicker your paint is, and then the hotter your gun, the bigger, like the further apart your crackle webbing is going to be. I don't know if any of you have done that before. White is a color. You know, I love color, but I realized today, well, part of, like at my house, I change the furniture a lot because I'll bring in like what I intend to bring to the shop, or I'll have in my house something that I intend to paint but haven't gotten to it yet. So the furniture changes. I'm just gonna come over here and paint this side. But the furniture that I have intentionally put in my house and am not gonna bring back to the shop, I've realized it's white and it's not colored. And I never thought about this till today, and when I was sitting and thinking about doing the white, that I tend to bring the color in my house in different ways and not with the furniture. And I don't know if that's because I paint furniture all the time or what, but like I have a turquoise ceiling in my dining room, or I've got color in the drapery or in the rug, but the furniture is neutral. So, something to think about. All right, so I'm just going to do that part there. I'm going to turn it to the side so I can show you guys where I got the bleed through. You were just planning white swan on you were just doing white swan in the live earlier? I never see white either. It's strange. A lot of times when I do white, it's because I'm doing white chippy milk paint, which is weird. I get into these habits. So that's all. So today's like White Friday. All right. So that'll dry pretty quickly. All right. So I don't know if you guys can see it actually. I'll try to move it so you can. So this is on wheels. These old pieces always have casters on them, which I love the casters. Okay, so do you have a page that I could find? Yes. Oh, you're talking, I'm not sure who you're talking to. I didn't even introduce myself. I got so excited about white being a color. I'm Michelle from Serendipity House, and my page is Serendipity House LLC. And we're gonna end up finishing this project over there because we won't finish it all tonight. All right, so I'm trying to see if I can see this on here. So I rolled the shellac on earlier, and sometimes you miss a spot. If you decide to use a spray can instead of the regular can and you roll, a lot of times because it missed or whatever, you're gonna miss a spot. So when you do miss a spot, you're just gonna see some yellowing. Can you see that right there? It actually is kind of orange. And what I did when that happens is I just kind of go over it and I just spot fix it. So I took, about an hour ago when I saw that, I took the shellac and I already put another coat of shellac just over that spot. So that should stop the bleed through on this second, I don't know if y'all can see that. It should stop the bleed through on the second coat. Let's see. Yeah, I'm not sure if the light picks it up, but all along here, it's kind of pink. You know what, and what tricked me when I first started doing this is, like I mentioned a little while ago, one of the first pieces I did in chalk paint was about 6 years ago, and I did it for my sister. And it took about 9 months before I noticed bleed through. Before I noticed there were knots, it was a pine bench, there were knots coming up and then a little bit of pink around it. And it didn't happen right away. I painted it white, distressed it, and I waxed it. And you know, the wax still looks awesome, but it came right through. And sometimes the bleed through doesn't happen until you put your sealer on. You just never know. So I always say, better to be ready in the beginning. Prep it right. Don't worry about it, especially if you're selling in a shop. So I think this is going to need 3 coats, but that you can see how much better that is covering than this. So Lynette and Wendy are chatting. You didn't want to know my page, you wanted to know Lynette's page. You guys are funny. So does anybody out there, do you guys like white? I see white all the time, but when I'm seeing it, it seems like, looking for my lower stool, it seems like what I'm reading is that they're customs, or that it's because somebody else really wants, they just want white. And people are not happy they're having to paint just white. And I think that as long as, I don't mind doing the white as long as it doesn't have to be a flat white, as long as I can add dimension. And I like to do that with glazes or with wax, or with this one I think I might, after I've got 3 coats on here. It's only been a couple hours since I put the first coat on. You maybe could use a little bit of drying time, a little more if it's humid. But I'm thinking, you know, you've got all these details, all this trim around here, that to feather in a little bit of a dark color, just a little bit for some subtle shadowing. You know, it's artistic and it makes a big difference. I like to do things so that people look at it and they love it, but a lot of times they're not sure what they love about it. You know, it's kind of hard to explain, but sometimes there are just things that I love, but I can't put my finger on why. And I think when I'm painting white, sometimes I'm going for that. Love, love, love white. You know what, when I walk into a space that is like all white and airy, and I love it too. I've just never really done it in my own house. I don't know why. Because I like everything. Color makes me happy too. I'm thinking, Lynette, on the raised details, that what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to do a little bit of wet distressing and just rub it back to get some aging. And then I'm either going to go in with with black wax around all the edges, or I'm gonna go in with like a light color, like a light gray, and feather it in, but very little, and then also do the wax. And I change my mind all the time, which is why I just know that the base is gonna be white, but I think it's gonna take 3 coats. So let's hit the top here. I'm one of those people who likes to have the piece. I feel like I should be able to move all of this so you can see everything here. I'm one of those people who likes to have the piece talk to me. And make it up as I go along, which is one of the reasons I don't love customs, because I can always find a way to like improve. So I have to tell you, I kind of forgot about this too until I started painting the top here. I was shellacking this outside because shellac smells really bad. And it smells, I mean, I don't love using it. It smells quite toxic. It stinks. So I was doing it outside. But while I was doing it, the lawn guys decided, they must have been mowing and then one in the lunch break. They decided to come back and start weed whacking and then blowing around everything. So I ended up cursing under my breath a little bit and bringing this inside, but not before it got a bunch of, I don't know, pieces of grass or whatever it was that they were blowing around stuck in my shellac. So that wasn't good. Your dresser's talking too much. You know, I hate when my piece is always changing its mind. Don't you hate that too? All right, so I'm kind of a messy painter. I am not going, I'm not going for smooth, although this, I want it on kind of thick. The top is definitely going to be sanded. I love sanding down this paint. I don't always do it. As a matter of fact, most of the time. And with the fronts, I will probably use a spray bottle to thin the paint out, to layer, and I won't need to sand it. But I'm gonna put this on rather thick and I'm gonna sand it, and after it is sanded, if you've never sanded DIY paint, it's gonna feel like butter, like butter. It has the most amazing silky feel, and I love to do that to the tops of my furniture. So the wood that I'm painting over, I'm just realizing I think I'm out of the camera now. The wood that I'm painting on top of is hold on so I can, there we go. It is a mahogany, but it's a mahogany veneer now, which is still wood, but some of the wood grain was already kind of, it was gone when I sanded it, but when I got to it, it was gone, so I wasn't going to be staining it. It did look prettier when I put the shellac over it. It looked kind of finished. But you know, the other thing about doing it this way and protecting the wood and starting with shellac is in 10 years, if somebody wants to go back and strip this down and get back to the original, I don't know where to put my thing now, and get back to the original, then they'll be able to do that. If I had sanded it down to raw wood and put a primer on it and filled, or not put a primer on it and painted right over the raw wood and it got into the grain, it would have been a lot harder. It would be a lot harder to strip. So yes, this top is messy. I actually learned how to paint chalk paint going kind of crisscross, like this. I'm not going to do it just on one spot of this, although it won't really matter when it's sanded. And you can see it's pulling a little bit. When it's pulling, I just have a water bottle, which actually is usually enough. Of course, now I did it over the whole thing, so I need to go back and wipe the water in. But that's usually what I do on the front and the sides. to minimize my brush strokes, to get the paint to spread if it's not, you know, if it's drying too fast or if it's just thickened up on me because I've had it out for too long. I go through, for somebody who doesn't use a lot of white, I go through a lot of quarts of it though. Not sure why. Alrighty, let's turn this around. Pulling means, Wendy, pulling is, it's like when you're getting drag in your paint. So when I was going over my paint, you could see that it was making a mark, and it's pulling the paint that you already put down while it's drying on you. Does that make sense? Maybe somebody else can make sense of it. Literally pulling your paint. All right. It's so humid, it's taken a while to dry on me. Okay, we could do the bottom drawer, I guess. Let's see. Oh, actually, look, this because it's so thin, this is dry. Right there. Is that a situation where you could mist it? Yes, that's exactly when you want to mist it, Lynette, is when your paint is pulling. And you can add so much water to the DIY paint before, before you start losing or changing any of the coloring on it. I don't know why I didn't do that drawer. So luckily, looking at this right now, I'm not seeing any bleed through, so I think I got that pretty well. It is easy to miss spots, but then, you know, when I see those little spots, I'm so happy that I primed or shellacked the whole piece, because I think, gosh, if the whole piece did that, you spend all that time and then you have to go back and fix it, because there's no paint in and of itself that will block the bleed through in the tannins. So when when people are talking about no prep, that does not mean for bleed through. That means for having the paint stick. You do need to clean, of course. All right, so we can go back for a second coat on that. You know, actually, I can see on the top where there was pulling on it. I don't care because I'm going to sand this, but hey, Karen from Michigan, how are you? I will not sand between coats. Let's see, I gotta get this drawer out. I will not sand between coats, Lynette. I will just do 3 coats on the top, and then I'll sand it down with maybe 220. And just to get that nice, I mean, I love the finish that you get is amazing when you sand. Now you do need a dust mask because it's really, you know, it's mud and it's chalk, and you need to protect yourself. And it really does get. I'm at the very bottom of my. Whoops, that's the wrong cup. That was just the brush, but I'm at the very bottom of this. Forgot what I was saying. Nobody else has to be here to interrupt me. I just interrupt myself and lose my train of thought. But there's just so so many tricks, and I love experimenting and just watching other painters. I'll be like, oh, I've never tried that, and just try something new. And I fail a lot. If you guys watch me enough, you'll know that I happily show all my mistakes, and then half of the battle is how to fix it so you don't do it again, and learning from that. I'm very big on that, which is also why I try to have a lot of content in my lives. I know I'm talking a mile a minute. Hopefully what I'm saying is helpful. Hey, from Houston. Lynette, I'm in I'm in a group shop, and I have been there for a little over 4 years. Can you guys see over this way? And before that, I was in a couple of other shops. But I've been doing this for about 6 years. Furniture for about 6 years. Before that, I'm a mental health therapist. I worked with kids and families for about 15 years, and a lot of crisis work, and I loved that. And I took a break and then realized, time for a change, and I kind of fell into this. I was doing a lot of, just for fun. I was doing interior work and a little bit of furniture here and there for many, many years. It was kind of like a side gig, except I didn't get paid. I just did 2 of my houses, my sister's house, a bunch of rooms for friends and friends' kids without getting paid. So I don't know if that's a gig or not. I love doing it. So that's kind of how I ended up doing this when my grant position ended the last time I was in mental health. And it's still fun, so I'm still doing it. Painting is very therapeutic, hence Friday night paint therapy, right? Wendy, what are you getting your master's degree in? I got my master's degree. I finished it when I was about just under 30 years old, and I don't think I could do it again now. That was over 20 years ago, 20-something years ago, and I honestly, I feel like I have no memory. I couldn't memorize anything to take any tests. So, so for anybody who is doing their master's degree and is on the older side of the kids in the class, and you can remember stuff and keep it together and have a full life, and I applaud you, because it is hard work. I'm really glad I did it. It was something, I loved the work. My iPad thing fell off, tools and all. I need an assistant for all the techie stuff. Okay, so we could do a second coat on here. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to do, I'm not going to get to any next steps on this, because it all just has to dry, and it's so hot. Does anyone have any questions that I haven't answered? I feel like I'm talking a lot. I'm so glad you guys are watching. I'm so happy that so many of you tuned in for white on the DIY colorful paint page. You know what? It's the same techniques. You're just using a different color. It's going to be more contrast. So when I go back, I'm really excited to get some black. I know it's a few steps down the way here, but the black wax against this white, which is what I've done on one of the pieces in my house. I'll post pictures later, because I don't think I ever did, because I wanted everything perfect and the house was always dirty, so I never took pictures. But it really is beautiful. You did your master's at 60. Oh, wow. That is so awesome. I feel like my brain turned to mush after I had kids. Plus I have ADHD, so no, I don't have the H. I have ADD. I'm always tired. And let's make sure this is dry enough. And I don't take anything for it, so I really am flighty. I had to take something for it when I used to work, because you couldn't have a conversation with me. Imagine coming to me for therapy and help, and I keep interrupting myself. Or maybe it's because I did that work for 15 years, listened to everybody else, never talked about myself or what I like to do or anything, and so now it's like you can't shut me up, because nobody's ever listened to me, right? I think I'm an overthinker too. So what did you get your master's in? Do we have any? Adderall's your best friend, yeah. I don't take it now, but I used to, and it used to make a huge difference. And, you know, it runs in my family. And if you haven't experienced it, then like I could take, I don't know if you're the same way, but I'm sure some people are. I could get up in the morning, have a huge Starbucks coffee, and go back to bed for hours. Because it doesn't, I also have fibromyalgia, so I get really tired. But what I mean by that, though, is that it doesn't act like a stimulant. I can drink coffee before I go to bed at night, no problem. Look at how messy I am. Other messy painters, I actually am wearing clothes that don't have paint on them yet, but they probably will by the time I'm done tonight. All right, this second coat is covering really well. Oh, you know, the other thing I didn't tell you is on these old pieces, those of you who paint a lot or who like the 1920s, 30s, 40s pieces that have the like alligator crackle varnish, and like this has it on the legs mostly, but I get some pieces sometimes where it's kind of all over the body. If you paint over that, you're still going to get that texture. So if you don't want that texture, you need to sand it off or use, what do I use? Alcohol, not rubbing alcohol, the other kind of alcohol. Blanking out on what it's called. Anyways, I love the alligator finish, so I always paint right over it, and it just gives it more of that depth and more of that aging. Oh, you're getting you're getting your degree in linguistics, ESL. Cool. Hi, Trilby. I did not, well, see, Trilby, you're going to have to rewind because I've been talking a mile a minute. I sanded the top because it had dings. The rest of it, I did not sand. I shellacked it to prevent bleed through. And I'm on my second coat. I should probably check the time. Yeah, we're going to wrap it up in a minute. And I've just been talking about how to avoid getting bleed through when you're painting white. So it has shellac. You know what? This has a mirror too. But I haven't decided if I'm going to do the mirror or try to, or keep the mirror off it, because sometimes the mirror kind of dates it or makes it look more formal. But it does have one of those shaped mirrors that tilts and has the little screws on the side of it. I don't know. What do you guys think? I like the look of the mirror, but it really does kind of change it. Sometimes what I do actually is I'll wait and I'll listen to the dresser, see what it's telling me, follow through on the whole thing, and then decide if it needs the mirror or not. I had a piece about a year ago in the shop, and I had a mirror on it, and people were like, well, how much is it without the mirror? And I'm like, well, the mirror comes with it. Like, what? So I finally just took the mirror off and the dresser sold. But I thought that was a little weird. So now sometimes I don't even include the mirrors. Because it just changes the look. It makes it look like a piece from the 40s, whereas I think people are looking for something more updated. So, all right, well, this is gonna dry overnight. It is 8:45 here on the East Coast, so it's getting kind of late. I think I'm going to come back tomorrow, actually, and finish up this coat, maybe do a third coat. And if you want to see me finish this, then let's see, Monday, there's a fly over there on it. There's a fly in the dry paint. Anyways, Monday at noon, live on my page. My plan is to be back here with the next steps. So let's see, by that time, I'm either going to decide spur of the moment if we're going to be putting in a color here to blend it into the white, or if I am going to just do some wet distressing on the raised parts and do some clear wax, and then lots of black wax for my detail. I love black wax against white. So if you want to see how I finish this piece, Monday at noon, Serendipity House LLC. So guys, thanks so much for, I can see hairs, raised up hairs on my arm with white paint. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. And if you want to see any of the other lives, or if you missed the beginning of this one, you can see it on my page, or there's a video section here on the DIY Paint page. And you can see anybody's videos anytime on replay. You could sit back and you could like binge watch them if you want. If you want. You could watch somebody else's work. All right, guys, have a great weekend. Happy Friday. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in 2 weeks.